Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to Roma Theory. It's been a bit. Yes, it has. This international break, I've had enough of it. And I promise that this is one of the last live streams in my living room because I can officially say that my room is almost ready. The YouTube studio is almost ready. So in a few days, we'll move back where we belong. But yeah, I wanted to go through a very interesting interview. A very, very, very interesting interview that Ivan Juric released this morning at Il Corriere dello Sport. Very, very reliable source. And probably the main, as I always say, sport newspaper here in Italy, as well as La Gazzetta dello Sport. And I find this interview very interesting for various different reasons. Number one, I feel sorry for him because the circumstances that he's been placed in are, in my opinion, disrespectful towards him. And this is something big, and it's something that I will get into in this live stream. And then on the other hand, at the same time, I want to go through this interview because it's yet another example of Urich, and I say Urich in this case, but previous managers as well, being puppeted by this board. And I think it's a very interesting one. Now, of course, he also did mention a few things on the players, on the tactics, on how he wants to play. He said that Pisilli is a young intellectual, and he said that Dybala is a wonder to everyone's eyes. And then he also compared Pellegrini to God. He said that Pellegrini moves like a god inside of the football pitch. And I think the way he sets this out is very interesting, and it's something that definitely deserves a review and an analysis in today's live stream. But first of all, hello to everybody in the stream, hello to everybody in the chat, and thank you from the bottom of my heart to Quebec for the 500 SARs. I believe it's South African Randy, something like that. Glad you're back. Yes. Thank you, mate. I'm glad I'm back. I am glad I'm back. I'm glad that the international break is over and that we can now slowly get back focusing on the football that counts. I'm looking forward for it, but I'm not ready for what's next. That's the way I set it out. I am not ready for what is next because I think in the next 3 games, everything or the opposite of everything could happen. And this is something which I want to speak about tomorrow because it's my fear. In the next 3 games, we will either be in hell or we will either be in paradise. And when I mean the opposite or kind of the opposite could happen, it's that. And And I think this interview that Urich has released today is a good base to start off this very intense period. But thank you again to Quebec. Hello to AI. Hello to John. It's Saudi Arabian Rio. Thank you, mate. Sorry for the correction. Thank you for the correction. Right, let's get started. Hit the like, subscribe, do all of that down below. As always, if you enjoy these videos, if you want to keep them coming, then show me that you like them by hitting the like and subscribing to the channel. First thing to analyze is his introduction. He said this: "For what I felt inside, I feel in heaven, and Roma is my heaven. I'm aware of what's happening outside amongst the fan base, but I am focused on my work, which is exciting. The team is doing a crazy job and a great job. Performances are clearly growing. In Trigoria, I move in fantastic conditions. I have only positive sensations. Knowing that the situation outside is what it is, we must accept and move forward. I have never found myself in a similar but equally beautiful situation. Those who love football have very much fun here. I'm sure that with the results, things will change outside too. I feel the warmth of the fans at every step." Having said this, the first thing which I will set out is something which I repeated in the past and I would like to repeat again. After reading this interview, I feel sorry and I am kind of grateful for the opportunity that he took, understanding the risks of this opportunity. Similar to what De Rossi and the arguments made with De Rossi, a manager who accepts this mess, this utter chaos, this catastrophe, this interior catastrophe, whether you're Guardiola or whether you are Juric, deserves my respect. And I feel like he still hasn't fully understood the dynamics and the atmosphere and the environment that he has accepted and the environment of us fan base that he has been placed in. I still feel like he needs to develop this in his mind. I still have an image of Urich like a kid at a Luna Park, at a kid in front of a fun fair. This interview, though, if I could depict this interview in an image, I would kind of draw it as a kid in front of a roller coaster, kind of going like, wow, this is my opportunity to finally be a big man. This looks incredibly fun. This looks incredibly adrenalinic. I really want to do this. But the kid in front of the roller coaster has no idea that if he's scared of heights, or that he's scared of loopy loops, or that he's scared of everything, that roller coaster will be hell. And the way I see this interview is exactly this. I see a manager who's comparing Roma to paradise, Pellegrini to God. He's saying that the Fredkins have given everything that he possibly wanted in football. And having seen what he said, I still need to understand if he understands where he is. This is the first question mark that I have coming out of this interview. The first question mark that I have is, I like his positivity. I like his way of wanting to try and change things. But I'm aware and also afraid that he hasn't understood that if things interior-wise don't change, then he can't pull miracles. So, and this is where I want to go back to what I was saying. I'm grateful that he accepted this job because, if it's not Juric, who would have accepted this job? Like, we would have literally sacked De Rossi to give this team to our youth setup manager. So I'm grateful that somebody actually has accepted to place himself in this mess, which is something that is not for everybody, because you could be sent down that bus and down that well and manipulated like a puppet every single minute. So that's the first thing which I'll say. The second thing which I will say is, I feel sorry because I personally was not expecting these protests to continue under the same extent that they are continuing. This is something that I apologize if there was anybody out there the day De Rossi got sacked that really did visualize this mess, also including the fans and everything. I applaud you because it's something that I would have never guessed. If there's something that characterizes us Roma fans is being inside that stadium no matter what, whether we lose 7-0 or we win 7-0, whether it's sunny or rainy, whether it's snowing or it's windy. If there's something that characterizes us is we are there despite everything else. So I'm the first one to say that I was never expecting such a reaction from the fans the day De Rossi got sacked. Because, if you haven't read the statement coming from the Curva Sud, the first 15 minutes against Inter on Sunday, the Curva Sud will not be there. I definitely thought that in the Udinese game there was something going to happen, but I thought that after the Udinese game everything was going to get back together, and it's clearly not, because I can tell you this, going to the stadium in these past few games, you do not breathe the same environment, you do not breathe the same vibe. And as a football fan, as a Roma fan, I fully understand that the protests need to continue because it's the only way these owners kind of understand what they've done. But I also feel like this is not the way you protest. And I might be unpopular when I say this. I might go against the current way of the Curva Sud movements, and I might ultimately you might call me a delusional fan, but I personally don't think this is the way you protest. I think if you want to protest and if you want to give a sense of continuity to your protests, you need to protest in front of the training grounds, in front of Trigoria, not inside of the stadium, because these players and this manager need our support. We are playing against one of the best teams in Europe, and definitely the best team in Italy on Sunday, and the biggest soul of the stadium will not be there. So we are already a shit team. We are already living a terrible moment. We already have referees who don't give a fuck about us. If we as fans also don't step up to try and change and give our attribute to the team, then I'm afraid to say it, but we won't achieve nothing this season, and we will underachieve what our expectations were at the start of the season. So, that's what I'll say. I don't think Juric deserves this atmosphere that he's receiving. Again, it's not directed to him, but it's directed to the board, which at the end of the day is asking for De Rossi's return, because all of these protests, De Rossi booing Pellegrini, everything week in and week out, is clearly a signal that the Curva Sud is sending to the Fredkins and going, we want De Rossi back. So yes, it's not directly influencing him and it's not directly directed to him, but at the base of these protests is also Juric's position. Because, I'm going to say this now. Remember, I said this. I said this on Instagram a few days ago. But if we don't change our momentum in these next 3 games, and 2 of our next 3 games are some very complicated games. Inter at home, Fiorentina away, a game that we never win, and in the middle, a crucial game for our Europa League faith. If you don't change momentum in these next 3 games, the protests are only going to get worse. And if you don't change momentum, it means that the players aren't following the manager. And the fans are gonna form such a massive crevice between the team and the fans themselves, that I'm going to say this now, if we don't change momentum in these next 3 games, De Rossi is going to return. Because the fans are going to so push for it that at the end of the day, I think the Fredkins are going to give in, and the board will give in, which at the end of the day, it's right, but then you kind of ask yourself where they were the day they sacked him. Anyways, moving on. Aren't you afraid that the protest has deeper roots? Furthermore, you took the place of an important figure of Roma. De Rossi was kicked out after 4 games. And again, this is him trying to say and explain how he feels about this moment of tensions amongst the fans and the board. I'm not tainted by negativity. I come fresh, and I will tell you that we are raising the level of the game, of the pressure, of continuity in the match. The internal relations are fantastic. We have a great director with whom we share many things. There is an excellent communication. I'm focused on this. I'm only interested in preparing for the match against Inter. I don't want to talk about other matters or dynamics. And it's all he needs to do. And it's the only thing he needs to do. I truly believe that he isn't the perfect manager to build a long-term project. But right now, I can only defend him. And right now, he's made mistakes. And the biggest mistake he made, in my opinion, was that post-interview against Elfsborg, which I will never forget, because it's the definition of mediocrity, and I cannot tolerate my team getting driven down by such levels of mediocrity. But apart from that, it's not his fault. He is the last one to blame. So I'm kind of I'm hoping that things change, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I am worried that the things won't change in the next month. And if things don't change in the next month, I am worried, but I don't like saying this, but Urich will not be here sitting on this bench in the next month. If things continue along the path that they are continuing in, I don't see him sticking around until Christmas. I don't. And I truly think that De Rossi will get called back. So it's a bit of a hit or miss. This is his chance. He's coming from Genoa, Verona, Torino, and previously from that, Crotone, and previously from that, from managing B teams. This is the opportunity of his life, similarly to what De Rossi's managerial experience of his life was. Roma is a big jump. And I am a bit skeptical on whether he is ready for this jump. I definitely think that he's not the perfect fit for this team. and environment, which is why even if we get top 4 at the end of the season, miraculously, we won't, but let's say miraculously we get top 4, I will go against the wave of positivism and I would not extend his contract, because you would be making the same mistake as you did with De Rossi, basing your long-term project on a wave of positivism. So I hate to say this, I will build him a statue if we get top 4 at the end of the season, but I would not extend his contract, because yes, it's important to think about the short term, but it's equally as important to think about the long term. And he is not the perfect manager to build a long-term project in. And he is not somebody that will stick around because of the character he is. And because of the character he will become if all of a sudden he understands, similarly to what Mourinho did. After 3 years, he acknowledged that the Fredkins don't back you. De Rossi, after 1 year, let's say, less than a year, has understood that the board doesn't back you. Right now, Juric is living in paradise. Slowly, he will understand that this paradise will not be there, and he will start clashing with the board. And the second he starts clashing with the board, seeing his personality, he will not stick around. So he isn't the perfect manager. But as of now, what I'm trying to say is he's the last one to be blamed. And I feel bad for him, because I think maybe with a bit more support from our fans in these past few games, we could have gotten a bit better results, which could ultimately not have made this next few patch of games so crucial for his future, but most importantly for our future. And then lastly, do the Fredkins at least make themselves heard with you? Yes, we exchange messages. For my part, I repeat, I am in heaven. We share everything. I have an excellent staff. In terms of player recovery, we are top levels. We have top conditions. But then these guys work. I don't have the feeling that here in Rome, anyone does less. They work hard. They are all hungry. They want to change the situation. In that sense, everything has been very positive so far. And yeah, this last quote is in my opinion, the example of, in fact, this entire interview, unfortunately, is the example of a manager that is being puppeted, just like our previous managers were. You know, an interview in the current state of Roma. And again, I'm not expecting Urich to go to kind of talk negative, because he won't, because he just arrived here. So I was not expecting Urich to say different things from this, but this is another example, an interview where our manager uses terms like paradise, God, heaven, and you know, he says top conditions, communication is perfect. The Fredkins, to me, write every single day. We exchange messages. We share everything. I have an excellent staff, an excellent sporting director. It's a puppeted interview. It's an interview that he is saying now because he's new. And of course, he just came here and he wants to play his cards to try and stay here in the future. But at the end of the day, coming from above, coming from the valleys of Texas, coming from previously the valleys of Greece with Lina Suluku, now not anymore, this manager is being controlled. This manager is being manipulated. And if this manager won't get the achieved results and the desired results, he will be the one where the boards will cut the strings of this puppet and he will fall down, and new manager will come in and the same puppeting and the same control and the same manipulation will happen all over again. And this is the situation. So this is the interview. I think it's important because it's the base of what could happen in these next few games. These next few games are critical. These next few games are crucial. These next few games are fundamental to understand his future, but our future. And if there isn't a change of momentum, a change of attitude, and a change of mentality starting on Sunday against Inter, then it's fair to say that we've thrown a season in the toilet and flushed it down like fucking shit. Right, let me read a few comments and then I'll end it. Roma-Inter result. I'll speak about the Inter game and what I think will happen in the match preview on Saturday. So don't worry, mate. Come back if you're interested to know. Have to applaud the mindset. Why focus on the negative? That's all he can do. Agreed, talking negatively will only discourage players like... No, I agree. And this is what I'm saying. I wasn't expecting him to say anything different. But at the same time, it's positive. But is it real positivism? That's the way I tend to think. Is he being persuaded to say these things, or do these things actually come from his heart? And I think answering that question, there are a few question marks. Ignorance is bliss. Juric can change Roma. I think these 2 weeks of no club gives him time to solve everything. Well, yeah, but a lot of players weren't even in Rome because they were with their national teams. Protesting is very understandable in this situation, but this isn't helping the team win, which is what we need, no matter who is the coach or the players who can carry the flag. Even Messi couldn't perform for so long with all the expectations and pressure from the Argentinian fans. Will De Rossi come back? Well, I think De Rossi is forced to come back. Number one, Suluku not being here is important. If Suluku was here, then my chances would have been less than now. But most importantly, De Rossi is under a contract. So the second De Rossi gets called, De Rossi would kind of be forced to accept a comeback unless they agree to terminate his contract, because the Fred can still pay him. So part of me wants De Rossi to come back, but on the other hand, part of me doesn't, because De Rossi doesn't deserve this mess. So it's kind of a, do I want this or do I not? Because he doesn't deserve this, but at the same time, I don't know. Urich might be readier now, but I think building a long-term project, De Rossi was way better than Urich, which is why this decision of replacing him with Urich makes no sense. I agree with people who say that Urich is readier to be a manager right now, but at the same time, I feel like building a project with De Rossi would have been better than building a project with Urich. And I'm not saying we are trying to build a project around Urich, because that's clearly not what's going to happen. At the end of the season, he's going to leave. But then the question comes, who will come and who will accept this? I'm not one of those Moo fanboys, but he was right about the management and not understanding football. You can't be this reactionary if you're serious about the club. Mourinho was right about everything. And I said this previously, but I'll say it again. Mourinho was right about everything he said at this football club. Can't believe you've done the puppeteer string hand movement. Right, I'm going to catch you tomorrow. Hit the like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts, comments about this interview down below. Very big game, we're back going. It's a tough moment, but I cannot wait to be back at the stadium on Sunday against Inter. Tough game, but we'll be there. Hit the like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, it helps the algorithm, and talk to you soon. Simo out. Good evening, and take care.